I've got one other issue, and I promise not to inflict myself upon you any further. And the title for this little segment talk that I'm going to do is More Bad News for Trump. Now, the problem is with a title like that is that most of the Trump supporters that need to hear what I have to say, once they see that, they're going to click on for a few moments and then they're going to switch off, and they're not going to share it with anybody because they don't want to send a video to their friends that says more bad news for Trump. But I'm going to go ahead and lay out the bad news anyway, because perhaps somebody will be wise enough to say, well, let's find out. Maybe it ain't so bad. Maybe Manning got an axe to grind. Maybe Manning's just upset with Trump that Trump did not appoint Manning to some cabinet position when he became president in 2016. Maybe Manning was looking to get out of Harlem and become some big-time, I don't know, cabinet member in the Trump organization. Or maybe Manning was looking to get a job in the White House down there in Washington somewhere. So now Manning up there yelling and screaming and kicking and carrying on, not because he knows the truth about Trump, but he's just mad at Trump. Maybe you say that. It ain't true. Nobody gonna offer me a job. Anyway, but it's also here. So I'm going to go through a couple of things, all right? I'll get to Michael Flynn later. Right now, I want to raise the question about this. Why is it that the judges that Tribulation Trump appointed, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, right? 3 Supreme Court justices, all on the Supreme Court, all of them. 3. And remember, Trump said when he was appointing Amy Coney Barrett, that I need to get the court lined up because this election is going to go to the courts. It's going to be heard by the Supreme Court justices, right? He said it. You know he said it. You heard him. And guess what? When Trump brought his case, he has appointed more judges to the Supreme Court than anybody in presidential history. Go figure. 3 of them. 3, and they're all, 3 that he appointed. And when Trump brought his case to the Supreme Court to defend his presidential election, guess what the 3 judges of the Supreme Court, by the way, who make $255,338 per year, ain't that nothing? A Supreme Court justice makes $255,338 a year. Anyway, when Trump brought his case to the judges that he fought for and appointed, like that Brett Kavanaugh boy, right? Guess what they did? They kicked Trump to the curb. Trump thought that for sure they were going to defend him. No. They didn't do it. They kicked him to the curb, not once, but twice. The second time he came, this attorney general out of the state of Florida, yes, said he had some bright idea that he could challenge the electoral voting procedure in 4 states that was not his state. He's not the attorney general of those states. So he was going to bring this case before the Supreme Court, and he got 18 other states, attorney generals from those states, to unite with him in what is called an amicus, if you will, friend of the court association with this case brought by Texas. And he got 126 Republican members of Congress under Nancy Pelosi to say, we sign on to the case that Georgia, Pennsylvania, that Michigan and Wisconsin, their voting system was rigged and fraud, and the Supreme Court needs to overturn that election, right? Now, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, right, all heard it coming. They heard it because everybody's talking. It's coming to the Supreme Court bench. Guess what they did? Thumbs down. They gave Trump and his boys a thumb down. Twice they slapped. Twice they refused to even hear the case. The only person that said anything about this case that was brought by this Texas Attorney General and these 18 other idiots, the only person who said Clarence Thomas, Mr. High-tech lynching Clarence Thomas said that, and while he voted, he stated that they did have standing, that the Texas Attorney General did have standing regarding issues about how other states run their legislature and their political practices, that they did have standing. However, he didn't state it quickly after that, but had the case been brought, he would have voted against their claim. But the only person that stood up for Trump was the homeboy. The only person that stood up for Trump was homie. Clarence Carter, he blind, married to that other one. What's her name? Clarence Thomas, Mr. High-Tech Lynching. He's the only one that stood up for Trump. The brother, the homeboy. He's the only one. The homie stood up for Trump. All them other people said, Trump, Trump, you got 2 chances to win this case. Ain't gonna happen, and none. Anyway, so that's one thing, right? So Trump, Trump ought to feel pretty bad about it. He did all this wrangling, got all these people mad with him, put 3 Supreme Court justices on the bench. Nobody ever done that in the history of America, and yet they won't even vote for him. They won't help him out. The boy's in trouble. He's getting ready to go to jail, and the people he put on the bench won't help him. Okay, let's move on. The next thing I think is what we need to ask is, if that's the case, then inquiring minds such as myself, here's what I want to say. Well, if that's the case, then, Trump's got at least a zillion, no zillion, that's probably a lot. Trump has got at least 300 to 400 court cases that have been held in abeyance. Now, that's a fancy word for saying abeyance. Anyway. Trump's got 300 cases that are being held in abeyance until he's no longer president, because you can't sue the president, you can't convict the president. He's too busy on his job, like golfing, right, and holding state dinners. But, so once he leaves the presidency, all bets off. Then all these people can come at him, right? And Michael Cohen said the other day in an interview, Michael Cohen said that Trump is not going to pardon Ivanka, Jared, Eric, Tiffany, and Melania. I didn't say this. I don't know. If it's wrong, it's Michael Cohen said. I'm just repeating what I heard Michael Cohen say. That Trump is not going to pardon his children. The reason being is because once he pardons his children, then they'll be forced to testify against him. They can't stand up and say, well, I take the Fifth Amendment because I can't incriminate myself by testifying against my father. But once all the charges are dropped and they can't be prosecuted by a pardon, then they can't take the Fifth. They got to tell the truth. And if they lie, then they go to jail. So Michael Cohen is figuring this thing out. He might be right about this one. I don't know. He might be right. But the thing I think is important here, and that's not the most important thing I want to say, is that Trump's got at least 300 cases, criminal cases, civil cases, that are looming, held in abeyance, that are going to hit the court fans once he's no longer president. And when he's no longer president, listen, let me tell you something. If the justices, by the way, there were some 50 other cases that were brought by Rudy Giuliani and these other people running around out there to these various local courts and judges all across America, federal courts, federal judges, about this, about 50 of them since November 3rd. And each one of them, they've all been categorically denied as frivolous. The judge told me, get out the courtroom. Get out of here, Rudy. So and many of those federal judges that were appointed by Trump, I don't know their names, but many of them also ruled against him because sitting on the bench right now. But what's going to happen when the district attorneys start bringing cases against Trump for money laundering? Will we see his tax returns? Will his tax returns point out that he has fraudulently filed taxes and that he has done criminal in reports on his tax returns or his loans from banks? Will all that, because once he ain't president, he can't hide behind that. They go, listen, Cyrus Vance up here in New York, And this other woman up here, they're gonna yank that stuff. They gonna yank his return like they ain't never seen anybody yank anything. So will these judges also, now that his own judges didn't support him, will you see Trump? I don't think he's gonna go to jail. I don't think he'll go to jail. But because these things could go on 4 or 5 years. Trump could kick the bucket, but he'll have no source of income. Nobody wants to stay at a Trump hotel. I don't want to stay at a Trump hotel. Nobody wants to stay at a Trump. Trump, that brand, that name. Howard Stern was right. He should have never accepted the president. That was the biggest mistake of his life, and he's made some humongous mistakes during the course of his life. That was the biggest one to take the presidency. But the other thing that Trump is saddled with the fact he don't want to give up that private plane, flying around, got his own limo being flown around all back with these big airplanes from the military, eating all that food, going all these various places, having all this power. Trump don't want to give that up, man. That boy, I think more than being in jail, I think Trump rather go to Alcatraz and spend that rather than give up, the president, because you get a lot of perks. Everybody pampering you, everybody yes, ma'am, and you yes, sir, depending on who you are. So potentially, there could be a whole lot of court case. The other person is, I couldn't think of her name a few moments ago, was Tish James. She is the Attorney General for the state of New York. She wants that boy. She's a sister. She's talking about the diary of a mad black woman. Talk about the diary. She's that Tish James is a mad black woman. She's mad with me too. That's why I'm trying to keep it on the down low. So, that's it. We may see Trump's tax returns. He lied. The boy, Trump. Trump had lied on them tax returns. Everybody knows that. So will he go to jail for that? I don't know. And the other thing is that Trump's presidency will remain if he continues to live. It passed January 20th, and I don't know what's going to happen in January. I have no idea. God may decide to keep him in power. I don't know. I'm not saying that Trump is a good person or a righteous person. That's the last thing Trump is. Trump couldn't spell righteous. Trump couldn't get a computer to spell righteous for him. Trump couldn't get everybody in his orbit to spell righteous for him. Trump couldn't get Trump couldn't get Trump University to spell righteous for him. That's how unrighteous he is. But I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't, because I know we're in the tribulation, and there's a whole lot of dirty water flowing around Washington and the Potomac. I can tell you that right now. A whole lot of bodies buried underneath the White House or underneath the Capitol building. So there's going to be the Trump presidency. If he leaves, he's going to try to run it from Mar-a-Lago with his 75 and maybe 50 million people to stay with him. The Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, a bunch of other people, right? Newsmax is making a ton of money now. Newsmax is actually taking over Fox News. Fox News is getting kicked to the curb because Trump kicked Fox News to the curb because Fox News kicked. So now there's this small organization called Newsmax is getting all the goodie now of reporting on Trump, and Trump's giving all the interviews. He used to call into the Brian Kilmeade and all them other people at the Fox and Friends in the morning. He don't do that no more. Because he ain't friends with Fox no more, but he's friends with these Newsmax people, right? So there'll be the Trump presidency, then there'll be the Biden presidency. I'm praying. I pray all the time, but I'm praying that Joe Biden will live and not die, because if Joe Biden lives, that Camelback ain't Black Harris gonna be president, and them people with Black Lives Matter gonna be having barbecues in the White House. They're gonna be celebrating Kwanzaa. Talking about Trump and last Christmas in the White House. If Biden dies and all of a sudden Camelback ain't Black Harris becomes president by default, they're going to be having chitlins and champagne on New Year's. They're going to be celebrating Kwanzaa, and they're going to be ordering truckloads of Red Devil hot sauce if Black Lives Matter and Camelback Harris. So I'm praying. The Red Devil hot sauce people are praying too, because they know that the government going to be buying more hot sauce for them chitlins. That's right. They're going to be out there in the backyard out there barbecuing. That's right. You know, I was almost convinced that Obama was a homeboy. I was. Because you know what Obama did? Obama, and I think he did this just to throw me off his scent. I think he was trying to get rid of me, stop me from talking about it. And Obama set up a gymnasium somewhere down there in the basement of the White House, right? A basketball hoop, a gymnasium, and a 10-second line. You know, because everybody know black people play basketball. Everybody know that. So if you're into basketball, that means you must be sure to stomp down black. But I think he just did that. I think Obama just did that to throw me off his trail. I didn't fall for it. I didn't go for it. No. I can tell you, if Camelback ain't black, no, you know, she's a Punjab. You know, she over there for all them gods with all them hands over there, the back of that Gita. At any rate, everybody, I'm James Evan Manning. I'm the Lord's servant. And it's only going to get worse from here. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.